me.
Yes.
Hi.
Hello, Robin.
I'm going to be talking tonight about, or actually offering, a celebration of healing. I think almost everybody here knows that I've written and published my poetic memoir, The Blooming of the Lotus, A Spiritual Journey from Trauma into Light, about the process of my own healing from the brutality of my childhood. I would like to speak tonight about the healing tools that I used, and also about the importance of celebrating every tiny step that we take in our healing process. What we need and want is to be able to move from a life of darkness and torment to one of love and light. Do you sometimes feel alone, worthless, not good enough? You are not alone. Many of us as children were made to feel worthless and not good enough. Many also suffered abuse. That was true for me. In the past several years, I have gone through a progression of healing steps. I told what happened to me, which was huge in itself. First to my amazing therapist, and then eventually, much later, to one more person. Then I found a group of women, many of whom had suffered trauma. I wrote with some, I made art with others, and in time I let myself be seen. As I received compassion, eventually I came out of isolation, and slowly I began to let go of the shame and self-blame that I had carried all my life. Some of the healing tools that I used, I had many of them. Of course, I wrote hundreds of poems that helped me move out to the other side. When I had no words, I expressed myself non-verbally through art. I spent hours and hours in nature. I identified more clearly and strengthened my belief system. And through all of this, I had my therapist. One of the ways that was most important for me in terms of being able to feel my self-worth and that I was good was learning how and when to give to myself. How to nurture myself and also to celebrate each tiny step that I made in my healing. When we have come from a childhood of darkness, it is imperative that we learn how to create our own light in whatever way we can, like giving to ourselves, like finding ways to rewrite our past, and claiming that we deserve, and it is our right to heal and bloom, rather than letting them win by giving in to the dark. It is crucial that we go into battle as much as we are able, strengthening our ability to fight against what they told us, what they did to us. Every time we give ourselves a few more minutes to rest or breathe in who we are, getting to know ourselves better, Every time we say no to something that just doesn't feel right, or yes to something we sense might bring us joy or peace or health, we are teaching ourselves about our self-worth. And every time we do this is cause for celebration. When we are given the opportunity to express ourselves through an art form like art or writing or music, we are adding even more to our self-worth. We are reclaiming our voices. We are creating who we are more clearly and uncovering who we are from who we were told we were. When we take into us the beauty of what someone else has created, we are elevating our souls out of the muck and mire in which we grew. When we bring this beauty into us, it is actually healing us at a visceral level. It is transforming us and literally soothing some of the effects of the harm, even after all these years. Recently, I was lucky enough to hear someone play the cello. And as I sat there listening, I held out my hands, which is how I receive. And as I listened, I could literally feel my cells being healed. Then there are the times that we can let in help, when we first ask for it and then allow it from a friend, a partner, a mentor, and even from whatever we call God. Especially with this last, when we admit to ourselves that we cannot do it all alone, and we put ourselves in others' hands and feel held and supported. And when we can imagine that little one that we were also being held and loved like this. When we are able to do this, when we close our eyes and can feel this happening, our nerve endings and cells and even our DNA are being healed. And each of these instances is cause for enormous celebration. We can give to ourselves in little ways too, like taking a walk in nature, which is free of judgment. And nature also can give us comfort and can soothe us when we open our senses to it, to feeling that. Or we can give ourselves a pat on the back for something that we have done, however small, like getting up in the morning, which could be huge. Or when we see something, when we notice something pretty and we actually make the choice to bring it and put it beside ourselves or to wear it because it makes us feel good. Or when we look up at the sky one day, take that time and notice how beautiful it is. Each one of these things that we do to self-nurture us is cause for celebration. Then there are the times when we fight against the darkness for a long period of time. And we break down because it hurts so much to have had the childhood that we had and that we even have to fight. But even in the breaking down, when we are letting ourselves be with who we are, and that is a wonderful thing. Getting to know ourselves, who we are, and what we have done for ourselves is important. when we allow the time to listen to who we are and act on our own specific needs, that is monumental. As children, many of us were silenced or ignored at best. As we continue to nurture ourselves, we are actually reparenting ourselves. And over time, that little one that we were is being regrown. And how amazing when we get to the place where we can be the ones to call that little one to us, hold her close and love her and say to her, "You are good." The past will never disappear. It is a part of us. But we can continue to build onto our own self-nurturing. And as we do, this becomes the prominent message for our lives. The more we do this, the more the movies of our past recede, replaced by how we are treating ourselves now. As we do this better, part of it too is inviting in situations that are healthy for us. And in those situations are people who are healthy for us. So now we are not only treating ourselves better, but we are receiving comfort, respect, love, kindness, gentleness from others too. Every time we do this, every time we draw towards us anything that is nurturing for us, this is cause for celebration. The act of celebrating is in itself monumental, however small this is of what we have accomplished. It is taking a moment to stand still and really recognize who we are and what we have done. This creates a whole new paradigm for our self-worth and that we are good enough. And it allows us also to see where we have come to with fresh eyes. I celebrate my own healing and the possibility of yours as I share with you my story in poems. I will tell you just a little of my childhood first. I was brutally incested, violated, and tortured by my father from infancy until 17, when I finally found the courage to say no. My father brought in as many as 5 additional men. My mother either walked away, watched, and she blamed me. I share my process of healing with you to offer hope and to tell you it is possible to heal from the deepest darkness out into the light, to love, and to the fulfillment of who you are. I will begin by reading the first poem in the book. Actually, I also just want to thank a couple of people. Christine first for inviting me to do this, and Edith for bringing the flowers, which are here because this is the 42nd anniversary of the freedom from oppression for Portugal. And I absolutely, big time, want to thank Hank for videotaping this for me. I am just, thank you. Okay. My heart moves to the sound of tears not fallen, waiting for the emptiness to find its river out. The hollow drum of my insides echoes with the warning of a hurt so deep I am lost. Effigies of horror burned, I tear at my skin so the blood runs, so I may feel this pain and let the weeping begin. At least then I will know myself alive. Part 1. This part is about what happened to me. This poem is from the chapter The Abyss. Shaman's Journey. Just sitting at the bottom of a pool, all the air let out of my lungs, not wanting to surface, wishing I could lie here forever, without breath, without thought too. Wishing life were like a shaman's journey, and I could be in two places at once, with my eyes closed, shutting everything out, and my eyes open, deep in the ocean, which the pool has become, watching mermaids swimming by. I could latch onto a great sea turtle and move through the deep green waters. So different from what's going on in my life. But I still hear the voices that call in the background, and still know, but don't want to know. Come on in. I'll start that stanza again. But I still hear the voices that call in the background, and still know, but don't want to know, or hear, or remember that somewhere in one of these lives I lie neither in the pool nor in the ocean, but in my bed, and inside I feel like a pile of broken glass. Part 2. You can tell I did not want to do much about part 1. It's a little rough. This is really a celebration for healing. I want it to be mostly about healing. Part 2 follows the progress of the major portion of my healing as I gather to me the healing tools that I will use, which I've spoken about already, but telling what happened to me, first to my therapist and eventually one other person, which was really important to me. It was just amazing to do that. Writing all these poems, making art, spending time in nature, my belief system, and slowly over time learning how and when to give to myself, and I don't think that is ever really finished. Learning how to nurture yourself is never really done. This poem is from the chapter Reaching for the Light. I'll keep going. So much responsibility. So much pressure. Like the weight of my father. The blame of my mother. I want out. Out from under. Out of this life. Out on the prairie. Out in the desert. Out in the open sky and dry yellow earth of New Mexico. Starved, branded, wandering, left to my muddled senses, left to be lost and never being found, wild in the desert, my hair long and stringy, held back by a glittering set of combs or nothing but braided grasses, my clothes in shambles, my brain in shambles, not wanting to answer to anyone. Leave me alone. Keep me drugged. Give me a frontal lobotomy so I cannot feel. Curl up into a ball and never uncurl. Just lay comatose. Gone. But the trees, they whisper. The beech leaves in winter. Please, I say. Soft morning sun on your eyelids. The feel of grass under your hand. Don't. The wind on your face as you stand on the rocks or on the porch at your house. I can't. Please stop. Your studio. I know they are trying to save me, despite the anguish, despite my desire to have no desires, to be dead to desire, and to my heart, and to everyone who needs me. I want to be taken care of, and I know I can't be, so I just want out. But I won't, because of my daughter and my son. And all right, yes, because I could not bear to no longer feel the wind on my face. See the faint rose on the clouds at sunset. And there is none of this soft green grass in the desert. From the chapter Awakening, I must have heard the angels sing. When we live in the spirit world between lives, music is what must feel to us like soothing fingers on the skin we no longer have. In all that befell me, in all the times I left my body to go there, this must be why I think of sound like this as touch. The beings that I fled to could not set their hands upon me. To do so would have made me relive the terror. Instead, they touched me with the music of their wings whirring back and forth, and they stilled my heart with the songs of harps, singing my soul to safety. With no hand laid upon my skin, they nursed me with their orchestras of love, so that now, as I awaken from the long sleep of my life's death, I can remember their ministrations, the notes of piano, harp, and violin, with which they touched me and sang me alive. Everybody okay? You're hanging in there, you're okay? Okay, cool. Getting better. From the chapter Courage, the Shell. Hesitant I stand at the opening of the cave that is the shell I have carried with me all my life. I have stood at this threshold for 30 years, watching, listening, doing, but not yet able to really step out, pry myself away from what kept me safe as a child. In my late 20s, I crawled to the edge of this shell. I peered around and thought it time to take a chance. I taught myself how to talk at parties instead of lying on the floor between a bed and a wall, buried in coats where they were thrown. But still, I realize I have kept my shell to hide behind. Now, I am ready, maybe, to step forward, away from its cover, an inch at a time. To open to at least one, besides the one who has heard everything. To bare my insides and this utter grief holding me immobile, and even allow my body seen with extra pounds. To share that I hurt, that I can't anymore keep it all inside for fear of the knife or the hands on my throat or other parts at other places. Instead, to hope simply for love. Part 3. This part is about the continuation of my healing as I slowly move out into the light and as I use more and more of the tools I have gathered to heal. In this poem, I'm speaking to one of my inner children, and for me, I have an inner child for every year that the abuse happened. It's from the chapter Giving to Myself, 3 years old. I see you, small one, crumpled in upon yourself, everything inside jagged and hurt. Do you not know You are only beautiful and too precious, too small, too innocent to be bad. You are only good. And I am here to hold you and love you and tell you over and over that you are good. You are good. Also from the chapter Giving to Myself, 4-seed and canola. 4-seed bread and canola margarine. They've become for me a religion. Lying in bed, putting down my book, closing my eyes, slowing my breath, and letting the goodness enter me. As it does, what comes with it is the feeling of being given to by a mother's hands. Her fingers gliding along my temple. A mother's words caressing me with care. Arms mothering me as they fold around me tight. Mother, mother, mother. And a father who not only does not hurt me, but who makes the sun shine for me, gives me the glitter in every day. A childhood of light and love, and me ending up with a sunny disposition, wreathed in smiles, my heart buoyant, bubbling with laughter with my friends, unhindered as I go off to school, rejoicing as I fall in love, never needing to end marriages, knowing what I want and keeping it, knowing how to let in love, how to own my inner beauty, never needing this much guidance on how to raise my kids, being sure of myself every step of the way because people have believed in me. Thank you, 4-seed and canola, for giving me a taste of what I never had and somehow making it a part of me. This is from the chapter Claiming My Life, Return. The way to return to the life that is in me is to do those things that are most myself. Snowshoe to the lake, be in my studio, spend time with the one or two who feed me. When I sit here at the lake on the boulder I call grandfather, I feel trickling in feather light touches, reminders of who I have grown to be. When I look at the trees, I see my sisters and my brothers, and the sky full of sun blesses me. It is here I can cry out my name again, lost so long beneath the ice of these years. The tears trailing down my cheeks tell me I am alive and thawing. I hear and recognize the chickadee's song and even feel joy in my heart to hear it. I must take this in, this life, this land, the air that fills me and opens me to breathe again. It will not happen overnight, but each time I seek myself out in these days, I am closer to recovering and claiming who I am. From Into the Lotus, Who I Can Be. As I learn once again to find the way that is right for me, to stand and walk on this earth, I let fall away how I was forced to stand and walk as a child. My body was not my own, like a river torn from its natural bed to bend and twist according to the rules of men. Now, like the river, when at last given permission again to follow its own authentic course, I too am learning how to make my body my own. What I am doing these days is moving me along this path. I do something. I acknowledge what I do and that I do it well. I breathe this in and then I rest, even for a few moments. I speak to myself the words a mother and father would have spoken, but not mine. As I do this ritual every time, I am inviting myself to be and recognize who I am. I am allowing the fullness of myself to fill the space that I inhabit. I am feeling safe enough to let happen the growing and then forming of who I came here to be. The chains have fallen away. There is no one forcing anymore. There is only my own voice claiming that this is what I need, and then discovering in those moments of breath and appreciation and rest, the wholeness and possibility of who it is my right to be. And from the chapter, The Lotus, Path of the Moon. At high tide, I sat on the rocks, the water near to where I was. I waited to be splashed. The full orange moon shining down, lighting a path between us. Inching closer and closer, staying to stone, not slippery. So many times I nearly felt the water. And as I waited, what I found was my own power reaching me, touching me, telling me, I am here. When at last the big splash came, I laughed aloud with joy. Such a gift to be here in this life at this time with who I have become. Thank you. So I open it up if anybody has questions or comments or anything like that. Happy to respond.
I didn't know you were born in Japan.
How did I say something about that in there?
No, I just didn't know you were born in Japan.
How did you know that just
In
now?
a newspaper.
Oh.
I know. Something? I never knew that.
Yeah, I was born in Tokyo.
Tokyo, and you could speak the language.
It was my first language.
That-
Yeah, we moved back a few times before we settled back here.
So how long were you there?
Only 3 years.
3 years.
But I was raised by Japanese women until I was 3. My mom was working with my dad, so she took care of us the first. I say us because I'm an identical twin. I don't know if many of you may not know that. Some of you may not know that. Whatever. So I say us. But she took care of us the first 10 days, and then she passed us off to these other women. So I only spoke Japanese. I mean, I suppose I must have spoken some English, but I couldn't say my L's and my R's. I said Robin. My sister's name is Leslie. It's Reshri. So actually, when I went to do the PSATs to get into college and stuff, my first PSAT score was something like 200, which is terrible, because I was so far behind with my vocabulary. I don't know why I'm talking about this, but I am. So far behind in my vocabulary, I had to just memorize words and words and words and words and words, and I finally got up to 600 or something, which felt a lot better to me, Anyway, yes. Yeah.
You sure know all the vocabulary now.
I do better writing than I do talking, I think. But I'm, thank you. Thank you indeed.
Was there a particular time you knew that you were going to make it into do a book? Collect all of you obviously you wrote poetry and whatnot. Was there a time that finally about coming into making it into a book?
Well, let's see.
Because that to me would have required a real shift in exposure for yourself. So
Yeah.
I guess that's what I'm curious.
Yeah.
How did that formulate for you?
Well, first, I want to say that I hadn't written poetry for about 20 years before I started writing poetry. And the poems, my mom died in 2009. She was the second of my parents to die. And this is a long answer, but all of my life I only had one conscious memory of this time when I was 17 when I said no to my dad. And after she died, somehow my psyche or something must have felt very freed. So all of a sudden poems just began to come. And I literally wrote hundreds of poems. And as more and more of them came, I think it was maybe my therapist who actually suggested that my poems would really help other survivors. And also, our writing group at Peer-to-Peer in Greenfield, I didn't know Turner's Falls, I didn't know this place yet, but the women's group that I found was the one in Greenfield, and as I wrote with folks in that, I felt really encouraged. The response to what I wrote was positive, and I felt like I was helping people. So I think that also encouraged me to put this into a book.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm glad you did.
Thank you. Thank you.
Did you start seeing a therapist after your mom died, or did you see one before that?
I started seeing a therapist well, I've seen many therapists. My first therapist that I saw was before I left my first husband, so when I was 26.
Okay.
And it was really funny, not funny, but it was a man, and I saw him for about 6 months, and the very last time that I saw him, I told him about my father having incested me.
The last time?
The very last time. And actually then, about 2 months later, my dad died. So I thought, it's taken me a long time to recognize a whole bunch of stuff, like the poem about called The Shell, where I talked about in my late 20s finally coming to the edge of my shell. That was when I was 27. My dad died on June 15th, and I left my husband in like November, and then that following January I took off cross country to stay with my twin sister who was in California. Okay, I was 27 years old. I am 63 now. It took me until last year to realize that it was because my father had died that I was finally feeling safe enough to be able to come out of that shell to the edge of the shell. That's mind-boggling to me. So,
It was just a year ago you started?
a year ago
Did
I realized that that's why I felt safe enough to leave my husband and take off and begin to, literally I would go to parties and go up to whatever room the coats were thrown on the bed. I would lie on the floor between the bed and the wall, cover myself with coats. I spent the whole party there. That's how much of a hidden I had to be. And hey guys, look at me now. So, I think Hank maybe knows another part of me too, because my daughter goes to Stoneleigh, and I don't really take part in a whole lot of things, but I'm also, I think, pretty open and warm when I do, right? Wouldn't you say? Yeah. So anyway, I hate to put you on the spot, Hank. So yes, I had that therapist, and then I had one later. I probably had 5 or 6 therapists. The one that I did all this healing with, this particular healing, I started with her in July of 2000.
But the shell was so strong in you that you weren't able to share with any of the other therapists until this last,
I think I shared some with them,
but not.
but really it was more situational kind of therapy, like trying to end a relationship or something like that. I did work with one other woman in the Boston area when I was going to school there, who helped me recognize that the power of the earth, and the earth became a great healer for me. But I saw this one starting in July of 2000, and then in January of 2001 is when I left my second husband, the father of my kids. So, and I'm still with her 16 years.
Mm.
It's been a long, long, long course of healing. It was really pretty rugged for many years. So, yeah.
And you started writing the poetry, you said?
I started writing the poetry just before my mom died in the fall of 2008. Actually, she died in January of 2009.
My mom
So I-
died in February of '09.
Wow. Well, she died January 30th, I think. Her birthday was January 6th, and her mother-in-law died. She made it to 90. I think she wanted to make sure that she made it to 90 to just compete with her. They were really like this. But I wrote poems for 5 years. 5 years it took me to write these poems. 5 years it took me to go through the healing of the worst, the real abyss, the real deep, hard stuff. Until, seriously, there's a poem in there about what it feels like when a memory is coming, and year after year after year, I kept having that feeling, and more memories came, more memories came. I have not had that feeling in quite a while now. So I really feel even if something does come, it's not going to be the blast away kind that I've had, which were so fierce, really, really fierce. So, yeah.
Was your sister aware of what was going on between you and your father while you were growing up?
I'm really sorry, but I cannot talk about my siblings at all, just because of libel stuff. I'm really sorry. I've been told I cannot. So,
I asked you because thinking that you were identical twins, you must have been very close.
we were very, very close.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Sorry that I asked you.
No. I usually get asked that question, or or similar questions, and I just have to say, I can't say.
I identify with that poem that talks about being able to speak of what happens to you, and you said to your therapist or one other person that from my own experience, I was drawn to remember my first time that we were expressing it. It was just the strangest, like, just not being able to say the words, just not being able to say that what happened to me. It's a very, I think it's really hard to put into poetry or write about it. This visceral, nonverbal, trying to be verbal. It's like, what is that? So I think art makes such a wonderful sense of, and the edge of the shell. I mean, I really appreciate that imagery too. Like, where is the edge of the shell? It's. But when you're there, you know where that is.
In the course too of the memories coming back, which really have just gone away again because I don't really want to carry them with me all the time. But there was a time, a memory that came when I actually consciously put my spirit into that shell. I really saw it that way. I was really little, maybe 4 or 5 or 6 or something like that. And I remember taking my spirit and putting it in that shell and just burying it inside me so my spirit was never touched. And I think it's really true, my spirit was never touched. And I mean, when I went through the memories then, because I really have never lived them as a child because I left my body, now then reliving them, I mean, I'm a completely different person than I was before those memories returned to me. I had one conscious memory, and that's it. Now I have like thousands of them or whatever of really horrific stuff. So literally, I'm a different person, which is really interesting. But I'm old enough. I'm an adult, and I'm capable of handling it, and I'm capable of finding ways to soothe myself and help myself. And as I said, drawing the little ones to me is so powerful. It's so powerful, especially when you can do it yourself. Yes, we have our therapists, our friends that can do it, and spirit or whatever, but oh my God. And I have to remind myself to do it. And I actually have 2 American Girl dolls. One is for age 0 to infant until up to 8. The other one is 8 and older. And I'm serious. That is amazing therapy. When even I think actually, this is really embarrassing, but I don't care. What am I doing? I'm not going to share who I am, right? My 2 little girls, I have a king-size bed still left over from whatever, my marriage. And my 2 little girls are actually sleeping in bed with me the last few days because I was having a really hard time working so hard. And I have to remember, I have to take care of these little people inside me, so that is a pretty big deal, and I have lots of clothes for them, and I hold them up and show them what their clothes, that they choose what they want to wear, I have lots of glittery stuff and put glitter on them sometimes anyway. It's really important.
Yeah.
It's important to give to ourselves. So important. When we're doing that, we are being the good mommy to ourselves, or the good daddy, we're being that good
The
person.
parenting, self-parenting, yeah.
Yeah, we're really
There's
doing
not a whole
that.
lot on self-parenting, there really isn't.
There what?
There's not a whole lot with the naming of self-parenting.
Huh.
I found one small book many years ago, I was like, that's what I'm doing, you know, it's like, that's what you call it, you know, just like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's important.
Yeah. And you know, and I've watched these inner kids. As I said, I've got one for each year that this abuse happened to me, and even on, you know, and but mostly, yeah, through the 20s even. And you know, I've watched how they are with me, and they have really changed. They really have changed. They do not. They are not these broken beings anymore. You know, they can skip around and they can have fun these days. You know, which is pretty cool. So.
That is the shaman's journey. I was thinking about that in your poetry, you said something about the shaman's journey, and I go, you know, the shamans are shamans because of the stuff that they've gone through, and they know about the healing they have from the other side. Very shaman.
Anybody else have any questions or anything they'd like to share?
Well, I appreciate the work that you've done and that you share it, and because I love the lotus image, because as I understand so many different aspects of the actual plant, the medicinal aspects of it, and the little shapes on the on the petals that keep itself clean, and the roots, and it's like, whoa, the metaphor for that, and in Buddhism, because it continues to be a light, a bringing to the light. It's so powerful image. I enjoy it being made larger by the world through your work.
Thank you, Catherine.
Yeah.
Catherine's an incredible supporter of my work too, and I just did prayer flags for healing workshop here last Friday.
The 15th. Yeah.
The 15th, 2 Fridays ago, is that right? And she just was an amazing support for me, and gathered all these genes and tons of ideas, and
Lotus seeds.
lotus seeds that she wrapped in made little pinky things out of, just cool. She's just amazing.
Lotus to eat.
Yes, that's right, she brought, that's right, it was so cool. So, anyway. You know, I didn't know what to do about this, but I think this is great. We're a small group, relatively speaking, and I think, I know all of you except for Sylvia. I was wanting to do something about this, and I would really like to ask if you guys might consider taking something to write with and on, and write down, you don't have to do this at all, you can totally pass, but write down something, some way that you could nurture yourself or give to yourself after leaving here tonight, in the next 24 hours, what you could do. And so you actually write it and have it with you. And whether you do it or not, that's okay, but the fact that you've written it, would people have any interest?